remember last time I set up an account here with this. Oh, we are recording. Yes, okay. I keep startling myself. Oh, it says recording. Here we are. Hello, everybody. Back with Sarah Dewhirst. We've been chatting. And Sarah, we had so much fun last time. We're doing this again. And I know there was a lot of stuff you wanted to touch on last time that I think we didn't get to cover. But we've just been chatting and talking about how the last few months you've come to a lot of different realizations and things. You're talking about slipping down the rabbit hole ever deeper. I know we covered some of this already. What do you want to recap some of that? See what kind of realizations you've been coming to lately?
Yeah, I just think when you go down the rabbit hole, your perception shifts so much that you almost can't remember how your old self used to think. And then you kind of between which reality am I, which perspective am I going to go with? And you have to go with the new one, but I think you just have to dip your toe in a bit at a time because it can feel a bit like you're, I don't know, losing yourself to a point where it's not sensible.
Or losing another version of yourself, right? So this is, how does that fit in with parallel realities? I've been reading this book by Frederick Dodson, Parallel Universes of Self. And if I get that title right, I always get confused with the title. But, there's this idea of, well, you have to kind of one of the rules of the game is if you're going to focus into a new version of yourself, you have to unfocus from an older version of yourself or from whatever the current version that you're focused into, but they all exist at the same time, kind of sort of like little lines next to each other, sort of parallel, right? So you're able to sort of crisscross, and I think often what happens is when we begin to change or we change our focus, right, that we get little tastes of that other version of us, and sometimes we freak out and go, ooh, that's kind of weird, you called it going down the rabbit hole, but it's just kind of getting a peek of an alternate version of yourself that sees things very differently, that thinks very differently, that has a very different assumption. We talked about assumptions too before we started recording. So I find that interesting. So it's sort of like you're unplugging, like you're in the process of unplugging from another version of yourself and plugging into another parallel version, right? Or another, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about self-love, weren't we? And yes. I thought self-love was the be-all and end-all, and then I've kind of come to the conclusion that you can love yourself deeply, but have one erroneous assumption that just completely scuppers you. And also that there's people that don't particularly love themselves that have comfortable relationships and seem to be fine. So I actually come to the conclusion now that your assumptions are more important. But if you do love yourself, then you have access to assumptions that are more healthy.
What would be an example of an assumption that scuppers you? Did you say, what is the word you use? Scupples? Two countries separated by a common language.
For example, some people have beliefs that nobody wants to settle down, or that people are cheaters, or everybody who they want a relationship with wants a relationship with somebody who's 10 years younger. And then, of course, that's all they experience. Yeah. So that's the kind of thing I mean in relationship.
And of course, that gets right back into what are you focusing on, right? Because your focus determines your reality. So therefore, that is somehow an aspect of yourself, right? Like the age thing, for instance, or any kind of limitation that you see in yourself. Doesn't self-love resolve that to some degree, though? Or I wouldn't say self-love, but maybe more self-appreciation or an understanding of your personal power. Maybe that's somehow beyond self-love and appreciation, but more an understanding that I can change things. I can change myself. I'm capable of doing that, and I'm capable of changing my assumptions, like you said. And then I know I can influence my reality, right? Or what comes back to me. Does it go beyond self-love? Is that sort of a...
Well, like I said earlier, you can have assumptions about relationships and things, or that you get a good job even though you don't love yourself. So the two don't necessarily go together, but I do think the more you love yourself, the more access you have to assumptions that line up with what you're actually wanting.
Yeah.
But then that kind of leads me into mental states that Neville talks about, and that each mental state has its own assumptions, beliefs, thoughts and feelings. And when you're kind of locked in a particular mental state, then you can't see anything beyond it. So one day or 1 minute you might feel amazing about something, and then the next day you may feel like you're a different person and you can't access the positivity that you used to have and things. And never talks about, just if you want to move into a better state, then just assume that you're in it and just keep assuming that you're in this different state. Say, for example, a state of confidence or empowerment or generosity or gratitude or whatever, and just keep focus on it, and eventually you'll shift into it. But not be about trying to force yourself to move into a state, because then you cause resistance because you're panicking about where you are and the thoughts that you're having that you don't want, and just to kind of just be at peace with it and let it pass through and not worry about it, because you're still able to manifest even when you get stuck in states that you don't like.
Sure, and there's that transition phase, that kind of transitory phase where you're going between some version of yourself and another version of yourself. There's this, some other YouTuber calls it the natural bridge of events. I can't remember his name either. I'm terrible with names, folks. But natural bridge of events, because people assume, they make an assumption of, well, I'm going to manifest this relationship, so next week I want to be married. You know, I mean, people seem to think, they come to law of attraction practice as well with this idea of, well, things will just fall into my lap. But there is a natural sort of unfolding that has to occur, right? Because we're in this kind of environment where things have to appear that way. But it gets, you know, it can get so layered, because people have asked me, can you change the past? I said, well, you can change the past, but not at this stage where you're at, you know. Focus a little bit more on where you are now. Don't try to change the past. It's sort of like, let me eat the whole thing all at once. Take little bites, little nibbles, and see how you like it. But yes, as you shift into another timeline version of yourself, that also has that version of you has a different past as well. But that will unfold in a way that seems to seem natural and normal. For instance, you know, I think even in the book, he gave an example of, well, you might have a memory of a childhood incident that was traumatic, and then later come to find out that something completely different had happened than what you remembered. And suddenly that seems to be resolved. But what actually happened is you switched into another timeline where the history, the actual version of that, past version of that, was different than what you remembered. So both things are true, right? It's not this or that, it's this and that. It's just that you can only focus on one thing at a time, really. Yeah.
And then we discussed as well, didn't we, about life being imagined, and that you're imagining your own childhood and you were dreaming it all, and it wasn't necessarily real anyway.
That's right. Yeah, we talked about that. You started talking about that. I actually found that fascinating. Let's talk about that some more, because so what exactly how's that been playing out in your life? You mentioned something about that briefly, but maybe for the viewers, they might find that interesting.
Which bit do you mean?
You were talking about going deeper down the rabbit hole lately, and then you had.
Yeah, I just think that I find that I learn something, and I think, okay, I've learned that I've come across this information, so it must be important to me. And I usually find that I read something, and then within a couple of days, I get proof that it's accurate, and then I get the confidence to test it a little bit more, and then you actually shift into this new understanding. You feel more safer to kind of shift into this new understanding that everything is imagined, and that, you know, we do live in our own little bubble, essentially. And that's why everything can be so different for the way we perceive it than to others.
How do others come into it then, right? That's a thing that I struggle with sometimes in my thinking, this idea of co-creating, and if it really is my little bubble, my little universe, how do they fit into it? Do they exist? Do they exist at all? Or they exist in their little bubble, and our bubble's kind of just, you know, what is that in mathematics or in geometry? What is that called? They kind of overlap.
My understanding is that people's bubbles don't overlap, and that in our bubble we experience our version of somebody that we've created, but we don't. So, for example, one of my kids, in my reality, he's my son, whereas in his own reality, we may not even be related at all. It's almost like the realities don't overlap at all. So I only get my version of him. He doesn't get a version of me. If everyone pushed out is literally that one-sided. Yeah,
right. And that gets confusing, right?
That's confusing.
Yeah. Well, we try to solve everything with our minds. We try to think everything with our minds, overthink it. And I'm guilty of this too. You know, I want my little meat computer to figure it all out. I want all the answers. And I get asked, Tarkan, how does this work? And what about that? And what about the other thing? I say, you know what? You got to stop because you're going to drive yourself crazy. And at some point you have to just accept that this is kind of how things are, and then just learn to move within that framework, right? And then you'll see that you have far more movement and freedom of movement than you thought you did. But if you keep overthinking, you want all the answers and how does this work? And, you know, mechanically, how does this work? And, well, if that's the case, what about that? I mean, sometimes we have to just shut it off, right?
Definitely. I find that the journey is my own personal journey is quite meandering, and that something will come up and then I'll spend a few days dealing with that. And then something else will happen. It's almost like Abraham Hicks talks about, that your inner being is always trying to show you the path of least resistance. And I do know that in myself, and I've watched videos occasionally, and they've been so precisely what I've been thinking about that I've accepted the paradigm that I am in my own reality, and that things that I'm seeing are actually almost custom designed for me, because I've thought about something and then 2 days later I come across a video or something in a book, and you almost realize that, it's so it just appears so bespoke that it must be literally just for you. But then you've got part of yourself saying, really? And you just got to, haven't you, until you find out which one you
manifested an answer. You had a question in your mind and you manifested an answer, right? Now, that's a type of manifestation as well.
Yeah. I think the journey is quite meandering, and I think you do, over time, you feel like you're going round and round in circles, but you are actually making progress, for sure, definitely, because things that you were wrestling with a few weeks ago are now no longer an issue. I mean, I noticed the other day that when I used to do videos, I used to do quite a few takes on them, but the last 2 videos I've just done one take, and I've not even been that bothered about, what I look like and things. I've just been completely more about it. So you definitely do shift.
Well, there it is again, though. There's this idea of your assumption about yourself, maybe a certain way you feel you look, or that wasn't perfect enough, or I screwed this up, and then you get certain responses sometimes, at least I do, that seem to be quite the opposite of that. Oh, this was a great video, and you sounded so clear, and I loved how you explained it. I sometimes think, really? Because I thought it was pretty discombobulated, and I wasn't sure I was making any sense at all, but apparently I was. But that's just me. That's them bringing out some, their need or desire for clarity on some level. Maybe that's just doing it for them at that point, right? There was this sort of, they needed my particular answer to it or my way of explaining it. And even if to me it sounded like, I didn't sleep that well last night, I'm going to do a video. I don't know if this is people are going to understand this, but then they do. So I guess it was particularly for them, right? Or in that sense, so they'll often say it. This is exactly what I needed to hear today. I thought, well, great. Then I can go off and do my thing now.
Yeah, how you read something and then you kind of think, well, I don't really know what that means, but I'm just going to hold it in the back of my mind because something tells me it's important. Then 2 or 3 days later, something happens and you're like, now that links to that, and that's why I've seen it. And you are just basically on this little meandering journey, and you've just literally got to go with the flow and keep.
Also, when we forget things that we wanted, so many times things will happen, and even good things, we go, that's weird. I don't remember manifesting that or having a desire for that, but we do at some point. We forget, right? And maybe it's something you sort of thought about and wanted 5 years ago, right? And you've been on this kind of journey since then. Now you're sort of the person that is perfectly aligned with that thing, but you just kind of you don't remember because so many things have happened in the meantime. You've gotten distracted and you go, wow, I won the lotto. I won that scratch-it ticket, or I did this, or that person called me. I never thought that was going to happen again. Yeah, well, you don't just, you can put it to rest, but it doesn't go away, right? Your desire. You'll manifest it at some point, especially when you don't think about it for a while. So you're always kind of weaving in and out of different versions of yourself and different understandings of yourself. I think that's the point of all this, right? We're kind of on this roller coaster ride. That's kind of the fun of it, the thrill of it.
Definitely. I think I end up going off in a tangent in a completely different way to what I expected. And something happened, I think, wow, that is weird. And I really wasn't expecting that.
And then if you think about it, I remember, 3 years ago, I remember thinking about that. There it is. Completely. It isn't even that I gave up on it. I just got distracted by something else. I'm easily distracted by things. So that's my kind of, to the point where I don't even try to have specific desires anymore, because I know in a week or two I might not even find that thing interesting anymore. But then it'll suddenly show up, and I go, oh yeah, okay, there we go. See, perfect.
You've released the resistance, I suppose. One thing that I've been pondering is when people say that you're only aware of things that are within your consciousness. So then I'm thinking, so if I'm out of the house for the day and I'm not with the cat and I'm not thinking about the cat, does that mean that the cat ceases to exist? Or does it mean cat's at home upset and hungry? Or does it whatever I think it means? And it's all these questions that start going around in your head about what does this mean and how does this play out? And you've got to play with it and prove it to yourself.
Yeah, that's I think about this a lot too. I thought, just outside the hallway, is it the moment I walk in the door and close the door behind me, does the hallway suddenly disappear? And, it's outside of my awareness, but it's not outside of my awareness because I can hear people out there, right? So, well, there must be a hallway out there. There must be people out there, but is it only the sounds that I'm now conjuring up because I expect there to be a hallway and I expect there to be people out there? So that's, this is kind of stuff I think about too, sometimes way too much. But when I was in high school and I got my driver's license for the first time, I used to play a game with a friend of mine. We used to just drive and get lost. That was the idea. No destination. Let's just go. Let's just start and see where we end up. And, it was a little game we played, and we'd end up in, it was a great way to explore places, But it was just, I think of this sometimes the way that I like to live life sometimes now. Let's just get in the car and let's just go somewhere. Let's not even pick a destination. Let's just see what happens. It's a fun little thing. Yeah.
When I went for a run the other day, I thought, I'm going to go this way, and I just went off exploring.
Yeah, that's right.
And imagined to myself that I was in my own private reality, and it was all quite entertaining.
Yeah, that's right. Or your own movie, right? That's a funny thing. It's fun to think of yourself as just a movie character.
Under my assumptions, it's just weird to kind of step into or experience reality in a completely different way that you never even envisaged was even an option. Yeah,
absolutely. So you wanted to talk about some things today as well. You had some ideas, and I know we had to reschedule a couple times, and so there's been a little bit of time in between. But what did you mention again before we start recording or something?
Well, we talked a little bit about self-love, didn't we? And then about assumptions. Yeah. About a little bit, haven't we?
I'm going back to hold on a minute.
Dates. Sorry, go on.
No. Go ahead. I'm just looking something up real quick because I know we had talked about this a few weeks back. And,
getting yourself into states or playing with mental states is quite important, and understanding that if you're that your mental state is not who you are, that state is just a transient mood. And when you're in some states, you feel amazing and you feel invincible, and then in other states, you feel like you can't remember, and you can't remember that part of yourself at all. Like you said, almost like in a different reality. And that to try and move into a state that feels more comfortable, literally just because it feels more comfortable, not because you want to manifest something, because you can manifest things from any state as long as you can.
Yeah, so on that note, because this is something that you had mentioned in an email a few weeks ago, what is the self, right? That was a question. What is the self then? So is it really just this awareness, this pure conscious awareness, or just the pure observer, all right?
Yeah, I would say so. So it's the observer, it's kind of your soul, your essence, infinite intelligence, your thoughts, feelings, your perceptions. It's a mixture of everything. But I always think of it as the part of yourself that's not physical. So if you were to die or lose your body, it's the part, your imagination, the part that would just carry on.
It is like a dream then, isn't it? You're in the dream. A dream can feel very real, very vivid. And then you wake up and go, oh, it was just a dream. You've probably had this experience. Sometimes I'll walk around for about 20 minutes, still groggy, still 1 foot in the dream and 1 foot in whatever this is, right? In the kitchen, trying to make a cup of coffee. But I'm not there yet. I'm still in this, what I was jumping off a building, and then some I don't know, a large bird swooped me up and what was going on there, and it felt so real. Which of this is real, right? Is it all real? It's just sort of the strange, you know, it's the meat computer kind of soaks it all up. It's just this kind of data filter, isn't it? But there's, but the perceiver, that's a whole other thing altogether. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm coming to the conclusion that none of it's real in the way that I once thought it was, and that it is, life is imagined. It's like a lucid dream, I suppose, or a simulation. I'm kind of more into that perception at the moment, but stepping into it. So. Yeah,
it's interesting to try on these different ideas too and go, how does that feel? That idea feel? Some ideas I go, well, that might be something there, but I don't know if I'm into that right now. That feels a little bit weird to me still, you know, a little uncomfortable to me still. Not that in particular, but so, you know, it's interesting to play with different ideas. A simulation within a simulation. Is it a dream? But then when you think about it, it all comes down to being the same thing, really, right? An illusion. So then what is real? It must only be perception.
But I quite like to think that things like wars and poverty and just horrible atrocities and things that go on in life, actually, they seem horrendous and like loads of people are being tortured and things. But if it's all imagination, then that does give you peace to some extent, that if you're not thinking about it, then it's not an issue.
Yes, and I was thinking about that this morning because, you know, I do sometimes get in the habit of plugging into the news, and the more I'll scan the headlines and I go, I got to stop doing this because, you know, it puts me in a certain state. And I think, well, it's out there, right? I suppose it's all out there. The good, the bad, the whole mixed bag of it. But it's what I choose to consume, right? You did a video recently on mental diets, and I had looked at that today, and I wanted to ask you about it because I've played with that concept. And you know, what is it? Let's talk about what that is, even a mental diet, and why it's important, and what does it look like to diet mentally?
Okay, because your thoughts and your imagination is the most powerful force. Then essentially that's the key thing that you need to focus on to affect any part of your life. I mentioned, didn't I, in the video that you could be the kind of person, some people are really skinny and they eat loads, and then there's other people who barely eat anything and seem to put on weight. And it's not necessarily because of their metabolism, it's because of their assumption, that your assumptions trump everything, essentially. So if you want to make changes in your life, then it's down to your diet, your mental diet. And when we first start on this journey, we're not necessarily terribly self-aware. We've had things happen to us that we want to resolve, and we have lots of assumptions that we're not necessarily aware of, and we just kind of pick through it a bit at a time, and we improve something, and then we're still stuck with this. And it's just like a process of elimination, really, until we get to where we want to be. But yeah, it's all down to your mental diet, and you might be doing, for example, doing visualizations and imagining, and then the rest of the time thinking thoughts that are completely contradictory to what you want to manifest, and you're just kind of undoing all your good work. So you've got to be pulling in the same direction for everything, essentially.
Yeah. Well, and also this idea that looking at the news and things like that, you know, I know people that, my mother is this way. We have to look at it. You know, we have to be aware of what's going on. How will it ever change? I said, Mom, when has it ever changed then? I mean, all your watching the news all day long and complaining about it and getting upset about it and getting anxious about it, how has that actually changed anything in your awareness, at least? You know, and it doesn't compute, really. There's this need to do things, to engage with the outside reality as if it were something real and solid, right?
Yeah. I know my family feel responsible. I've got to keep up with the news. I feel it's important. It's responsible to know what's going on. Whereas I don't watch the news. I've watched the news for years. I've got a completely different mindset on it. And I think listening to Abraham Hicks, she was the first person that said, you don't want anything in your consciousness that you don't want. Full stop.
Yeah.
Because you're going to create it. And then you think, if I am in my own private reality, I definitely don't want anything. I don't want to be thinking about anything that I don't want at all.
Yeah,
I want to be
absolutely.
of what weird and wonderful things I can create, and whether I can manifest a unicorn.
Yeah, I see. Look at that, right? Unicorns. But you know, this you know what? You have to keep me updated on that if you're actually going to manifest. I manifest unicorns all the time. They're constant. There was a period they were popping up in every conversation. I was seeing unicorns on backpacks, little kids dressed as unicorns, grown people dressed as unicorns, unicorns on the television. Then I realized in your country, apparently the unicorn is a royal symbol as well. You know, I was just one day playing with the idea of unicorns, and unicorns were suddenly everywhere. So yes, I manifested unicorns left and right. Now, an actual real unicorn, but what is that anyway, right? It's just the symbol of that thing was everywhere. Yeah.
Well, you think it exists, but then if imagination creates reality, then anything exists.
There it is. It's in the Bible. I never knew that either. Unicorns are in the Bible. These things I didn't know. Suddenly unicorns are all over the place. Yeah. That's a strange thing. But there's going back to the news for a minute, there's another aspect of this, but everything seems to have more than one side to it, right? So when we talk about the news, of course, going back to assumptions, we make an assumption that it's just bad. It's a bad thing to consume. There's only bad news out there. That's not really true either, because you can go and, oh, there's an interesting story about somebody finding an old hoard of Roman coins, or here's an interesting story about somebody discovering something new that can help people. That's out there, right? But which of that, what part of it are you going to perceive? That's going to be based upon your assumptions about what is out there, right? If you think there's only garbage going on in the world, that's all the headlines you're going to see. The other headlines won't even reach you probably, right? There's this, I don't know if you know of Fred Rogers in England. Mr. Rogers was a famous, popular children's television host here for many decades. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Yeah, you probably don't know that in England, but anyway, he said in an interview, you know, that his mother had told him as a child, whenever you see bad things happening in the world, like in the news, look for the helpers, right? Because they're out there. And he kind of brought that into his awareness, and he suddenly saw people being of a good nature, of a giving nature, of a compassionate nature, rather than exploiting each other and murdering and mayhem and chaos, right? So it really is about choosing. All the possibilities are out there, right? All the different versions of these things are out there, but it is you pushed out in the end. Whatever you choose to perceive, or whatever your assumption about it is, that's the only thing you're going to be able to see, really.
That's it. I had another conversation with another lady that I've been talking to on Facebook. She's quite advanced with her awakening, and she said that she wants to help people. She wants to know what questions people have when they're kind of consciously coming into their power and waking up. So I'm asking her all sorts of questions, and she's laughing away, and she's like, "That's brilliant." She's making notes of it. She wants to write a book. But she said that you've got to think of other people as not other people. Think of them as a part of yourself. So, for example, if someone is really innocent, or someone is really nerdy, or someone is really angry, you're looking at them and you're thinking, this is a part of me. Now, is it a good part or a bad part? And do I need to look at that part to heal in myself, and then it heals it in someone else? I know Dr. Hugh Len, and yes, 𝗵𝗏𝗏, she talks about him, doesn't she?
The Ho'oponopono guy. Yeah.
He's a healer, and he said if he attracts a client to him that's got a problem, he doesn't try and fix them at all. He just says, what is it in me that's attracted this problem in them? And if I heal it in me, then it's gone in them.
That's right. Yeah, he talks about cleaning the mirror, right? He says the mirror, I've dirtied the mirror, so I'm going to clean the mirror, my personal mirror of reality. And he's the I can never say this, Ho'oponopono. Yes, and for those of you who don't know what that is, that's look up Dr. Hugh Len, very interesting character. I think he was a clinical psychologist or something like that. And he was a native Hawaiian, and I think in the 60s, the story goes that he was put in charge of some kind of a criminal psychiatric facility that was just run down, and constant violence and problems between the staff there and the inmates, and the grounds were run down, all the foliage was dying, and he was put in charge of it, and he decided to just lock himself in his office and repeat this sort of ancient Hawaiian mantra, I think for stress relief was the thing, and it is Ho'oponopono, and it's just kept repeating, what is it, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, over and over and over. And he started noticing after a few weeks, things started improving. You know, the staff and the inmates got along better. things started growing on the grounds again, and it was becoming lush and fertile again, and you know, all these supposed issues were just starting to resolve themselves. But he was just wiping his own mirror clean, right? Yeah, it's fascinating.
You see things in other people and you think, I don't, you know, they don't realize that they're like that. If they weren't like that, then they wouldn't have that problem. And then you're thinking, but it's my reality, so I'm imagining them. So
it's my responsibility.
It's my problem and it's my responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think things that's quite weird when you're waking up and you're suddenly told that you are the God of your own reality and that every problem and everything that you see in it is all your responsibility. And you're a bit like,
yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Well, it's liberating and terrifying at the same time. I always say that. When I came to that realization, it scared the hell out of me. But, you know, it once was like, oh, that's kind of neat. Oh, no. Now I can't blame my parents and my circumstances and the government and the this and the that. Now it's all on me. Oh, no. You know, what have I got myself into? But, you know, after a while, you get used to that and go, oh, actually, that makes it nice. You know, I've encountered many people sort of out and about who I didn't like, who had a certain aggressiveness to them. I would just change my idea about them, right? It was just sort of this, well, I'm not going to make that. Sometimes it's just as simple as saying, well, I'm just not going to acknowledge that as even being an issue. It's not about me, you know, etc. And it would just dissolve. We talked about this too. Or they would just literally change overnight. You know, they'd be the nicest people. Suddenly they liked me. Suddenly no trace of that, whatever I perceived before, those personality traits were there at all anymore. And we would become friends, or, you know, and it can happen like that. And I always say to people, especially people that want to manifest an X-back or a specific person, they still want to change them, influence them, how do I get them to text me? How do I get them to do this? I say, you got to stop trying to get them to do anything. It's not about changing them. That version of them that you prefer is already there, but it's about a version of yourself that you prefer. That's what you got to work on, right? Yeah.
It's down to your assumptions and your thoughts and your imagination, essentially. Yeah. It's all an inside job, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. But it's hard to, the brain doesn't want to accept that. It's a little freaky.
No, go from feeling powerless and like everything on the outside has power over you and you're this helpless little victim, and then you're God and you're responsible for everything. It's a bit much.
It's a bit much. You know, people think, I'd be nice to be, it's good to be the king, right? But then you're the king and you're like, you know what? It was nicer being a peasant.
Yeah. I know. You sat there thinking, well, if everybody is pushed out and I don't imagine that anyone can help me, then literally no one can help me. And you do end up with concepts in your head and thinking there is nobody who can come and save you. I mean, I never believed in a deity particularly, but you do always think that, you know, if I have a bad day or whatever, or if I'm in need, then somebody on the outside will help me. But then it also occurs to you that if you don't think someone will help you, then no one will. And it just does. I mean, in many ways it's brilliant because it does really hit home about how powerful you are. But then the dark side of it is quite a shock.
We put ourselves through it to a degree. That's hard to swallow too. You know, I always love Bashar's response. Bashar is channeled by 𝗪𝗪. You know, people will go, Bashar, I had a terrible week. How exciting! You know, he'll always respond with this. Well, why did you choose that? You know, there's these. We put ourselves through these tests too. You know, this was in the book I'm currently reading too, Frederick Dodson. I'd love to get a hold of him and do an interview with him too. But you know, there's this idea where he says, you'll test yourself. You know, you might get the thing. And it isn't that you're being tested. There's nothing outside of you testing you. God isn't testing you. The world isn't testing you. You're doing it because you're seeing if you're ready for something, right? You're putting on you're trying on the clothes before you buy them. That's what it is, right? This is too tight. Maybe this isn't.
And I suppose you hear about new concepts and then you think, well, if I've heard about this concept, then I'm going to just try it and see if it's true. And you try it in safe ways, don't you? And then when you get enough evidence that actually, yes, it is correct, you kind of push it out a little bit more. And then, I mean, I've had some really funny days when I've been in a really daft, playful mood. And the shift in other people around you is just bonkers.
Yeah, absolutely. This little energy exchange that goes on, right?
Then you're thinking to yourself, this is all me. This is all like me just bantering with myself.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Yeah, I like that. This is just me bantering with myself. Isn't that interesting? And the idea that this, whatever this God concept is, whatever this thing is just having an experience with itself in these infinite multiple ways, billions and trillions of ways, from the bacteria on up to us, on up to, you know, right throughout the entire universe. It's just God having a conversation with itself, right? Through all these different perspectives, these infinite perspectives that it splits itself into. You, me, this idea, that thing, the dog, the cat, right? The bowl of spaghetti, whatever it is, it's all the same thing, the same energy, just splitting itself up and seeing what, and just playing, right? Having a little, putting on a little theater.
I was in a really, really buzzy mood yesterday. I was really happy, and I went to a friend's house, and I just went to buy a bottle of wine, and I went in the shop, and there was a dog that was barking like mad outside, and I went in the shop, and there was this guy that was really angry. Someone's just told me to shut my dog up. And he was really angry. I was literally like, well, I wasn't expecting that today.
That happened to me this morning. I walked to the little grocery store, and I'm looking at the, you know, they have the coffees there that you can buy, and right outside is the street. There's a lot of traffic on the street, and I hear this woman screaming, you know, out of her car at this guy, and just all kinds of obscenities. And just at that moment, this other man is walking in. We both hear this, and he looks at me, and, you know, we look at each other and just crack up, because it was this, because I was in a good mood this morning. I took a long walk, and I was going to go walk to get breakfast and coffee, and I see this, and I'm just sort of, I'm amused by it more than anything. And I looked at him, and he was amused by it, and we had this little, you know, we joked about it a little back and forth. And I said, isn't it funny that she wasn't even driving? She was in the passenger seat. But, you know, having road rage, she's not even involved in the driving, but there we go. And, you know, it was our reaction. It was just this funny thing that happened. It could have been something else. She could have been yelling at me or him, right? Or it could have turned into something worse, but, you know, and it didn't upset me. It didn't, you know, rain on my parade in any way. It didn't change my mood. In fact, I just decided, well, that's actually kind of funny. Isn't that funny? Look at this. And then this other man appears, or this other version of me appears, who agreed. I had a laugh with myself about it, right? That's kind of what we're saying. So it is about just how you decide to look at things. Things will pop up, right? Even things that are from an old idea that you have about yourself or reality. Old manifestations will still pop up. There's a thing you hear a lot, is that this, whatever you're perceiving now is already old news. Abraham Hicks says that too, right? So don't get so enamored with it. It isn't what's actually happening right now in real time. It's a delayed manifestation from some other perception you had, some other idea you had about things. You don't have to let it affect you. And the moment that you react differently to it than you did before, or than you would have before, that's when you know you've made a shift. That's actually a manifestation. And that's actually a reality shift right there. You've now created a new reality, right? You're in a new reality. So, and that's, people sometimes get confused by that. What do you mean? And I said, that's all it is. That's it. You've done it, right? And so now you just kick back and watch how the events unfold that will reconstruct this reality around you to match your new understanding of things, right? Your new reaction.
With the concept, you really do get to see the correlation between what's going on the inside and what's going on the outside. I do think sometimes there's a couple of day delay with like the general essence of things, but it's just hilarious. Like when the guy got cross in the shop, I did feel a little bit like, and then I just thought, it doesn't matter. It's just imagined.
It's irrelevant.
Yeah,
it's irrelevant. It only has meaning if I decide to give it meaning, right? And that's my choice. I don't care. The woman yelling, oh, that's funny. We had a laugh about it, and I walked on home, and I still had a great day. So it wasn't anything that upset me. If I had let it upset me, then I would have had a terrible day. Because, I had a friend say this to another friend of ours. We were hanging around, and he said, I had a horrible day today. And she said to him, well, what did you have a horrible day? Really, was the whole day terrible? Or was it one little thing that happened? And then you decided to just pull that thread and run with it. And, so it affected every other thing that happened to you in that day, because you allowed it to affect your mood. You gave it meaning. But most bad things that we perceive happening to us only last for a few seconds, don't they? Nothing as bad lasts for 3 hours or 24 hours, right? It's a one little thing that happened for 10 seconds. Somebody cutting me off in traffic. Someone was rude to me. My boss yelled at me. it was over pretty quick, right? But what lingers is my reaction to it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think as you go through this journey, you know, you kind of might have even be aware, you know, my old reaction would have been this, but now I know that it's meaningless.
Yes.
I saw a funny meme online, and it had two pictures, and the top one was an overweight guy slumped on a sofa drinking beer, just looking completely nihilistic, and then another guy underneath who was all chipper, and it said, I used to think life was meaningless, and then the lower down one was, and now I know life is meaningless, and it was just.
That's true. That's the next step up, right? Actually, that's the next one. Oh, yeah. Wonderful. It's meaningless. What a liberation. Yeah. I always love the analogy of being a movie actor. You know, I've never. Where did we go? I've never. I think there we go. I've never been interested in acting or anything like that, but you know, I love watching movies, and the idea I've thought often about what actors must go through because they get so locked into their role. They have to, right? Really good character actors and people like that. You know, I think even Robert De Niro will go and live that character for a while. I think for Taxi Driver, he actually became a taxi driver prior to shooting for several months in New York City. He actually drove a cab. You know, they get so involved so that they believe once the camera goes on, boom, they're that person. And so much of that is what we do, isn't it? We take on these identities. Sarah Tarkon.
Experiment, isn't it? Have you seen the Stanford Prison Experiment?
No, I vaguely know about it though. Is this about the inmates become the guards? What was it?
Yeah, it's basically wanted to see how people role played, and he got volunteers who were students, and half of them were prison guards and half of them were inmates, and he said it was basically scary how people fell into the roles. The inmates were quite submissive and fearful, and the prison wardens just became quite bullies, really. And I think the guy, I can't remember his name now, Zimbardo it might have been, he got so embroiled in it, so drawn into the whole thing, that his wife had to actually say to him, this has gone too far now, you need to stop this. They all got completely absorbed in it that they thought it was real, even though it was just a role play.
Isn't that fascinating? And that's kind of how we all bounce through the world, isn't it? This is so real. I'm this thing. And how people identify with what they are. You know, I'm a woman, I'm a man, I'm a, you know, or their job, their career. I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a cop, I'm a, you know, and it's almost like that's what all they think they are. Right? This thing, you're so much more than just that thing. You're so much more than the color of your skin or your orientation or this thing. But some people get so enamored with this thing. They want to just wear that flag and get out there and this is what I am. And so all their experiences and interactions are colored by that, right? It's and as soon as they let go of that thing, it becomes something else completely. Yeah.
It's a very cultural thing, and it's very egotistical, really, that you focus on what you do rather than what you be, who you are.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Identity. And it's so fleeting. It all goes away anyway, folks. Yeah, at some point the director says, cut. And then you got to go back to your trailer and relax and have a drink, right? Think about the next scene or the next role, the next movie, right?
Yeah.
I like that idea.
One of the little girls from The Exorcist, didn't she die or something, didn't they?
Was it The Exorcist or was it Poltergeist? I think it was Poltergeist. Yeah.
Guys, yeah.
That's, oh God, that's some trivia there from way back when. That's she had some kind of leukemia or something like that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I can feel my thinking about this kind of thing now. It's like,
what's that?
My energy's dropped just even thinking about that kind of thing. It's horrible.
Thinking about a little girl dying. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But then again, that's the thing. These are I think about this a lot, you know, or I have from time to time revisited that subject, that topic of what is death. And you know, I remember years ago, one of the things that kind of got me on this whole train and this whole path of even going down this, thinking about this kind of stuff, was my father dying back in 2004. And, you know, it started me thinking a lot about the nature of that. And I discovered this website, neardeath.org, something like that. This guy has compiled so many of these near-death experiences. I mean, there's just thousands and thousands of them on there. It's amazing how similar they all are, you know. And it really, I don't really think that much about that in a negative sense anymore. I really do think Abraham says every death is a suicide on some level, right? Because it's at some point we have to.
I think of it, it's kind of like graduation, or
Yeah.
Neville says, doesn't he, that you just basically almost go through a door.
Yeah.
Into a new body, and then you carry on.
Yeah.
Different, maybe in a different time, or whatever suited to do the work, I think are the words he uses as part of your.
Well, I love, and this is my rabbit hole that I've been going down, this idea of parallel selves and realities. There is and according to that whole idea, there is a version of me that's dead right now, somewhere in another timeline, right? Yeah. There's a version of me that's going to live to be 100. There's a version of me that's going to live to be 60. And again, it's about which one do I choose, right? I can change the script at any time. That's the beautiful thing, right? You can change the script at any time. So, because
Abraham says, doesn't she, that people choose their own death and that they choose to nature and stuff. And I know Neville said that he predicted his own death, how he was going to die, and I think the way he did die was pretty similar. He said he was going to explode, I think he said, and then he had some sort of aneurysm.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I don't actually know how Neville died. That's funny. I was actually just going to ask, did he actually explode? That would have been interesting. But no, he had an aneurysm, so explosion being a...
Yeah.
Every death is a suicide, right? This is kind of what Abraham said. I don't think we come here to be here forever. There are people that want that, right? And yes, there would be a timeline where that immortality would have been a thing that we've achieved in that sense, or physical immortality. I tend to think we're going to want to change the channel at some point, aren't we?
Yeah. I'll tell you something quite interesting that I was talking to this lady about, who's quite involved. And she's been to loads of different dimensions and different places. And she said that Earth is the hardest puzzle. And once you've figured out how to crack the puzzle of Earth, so once you've figured out that we're all just like in a simulation, that life is imaginal and that we are God and we have complete power, then once you've cracked the code and you've learned to become a deliberate creator, then essentially you can live anywhere and completely comfortably. But that living on Earth is the most challenging thing to crack.
Yeah. And so that's why we all choose it. That's an interesting idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not, I've heard a version of that. It's a school, it's a this, it's a that. I think it's just a level that we choose, right? Some of us want the hard level, Some of us want to cheat. Some of us want the easy level if we're playing a game of some kind. I'm going to go to the Earth level and see if I can crack Earth level, right? This is a tournament. It's a tournament. We're all in a tournament right now. Who can crack Earth? I like that idea. Well, sometimes there's this heaviness, this limitation. That's what it's about, right? We all want the thing now. And, the idea is that when we're focused back in non-physical, manifestations happen like that. We think of a unicorn and boom, there's a damn unicorn, right? But we don't have that here. We agree to the rules in this particular game. That there's not going to be a unicorn right away, right? But it's going to be, there'll be a time delay, there'll be a little bit of limitation, a little bit of heaviness, a little bit of, which is a good thing, because we don't necessarily want a unicorn to just appear in the living room here. Just talking about it, that would be ridiculous, right? But people want this thing now, and it's like, no, don't you understand? You already agreed to it being this way, right? So there's a part of you, like from a spiritual level, your higher self loves all this stuff. It loves all the heaviness and the limitation and the waiting and the frustration and the this and that. From its perspective, it's going, this is awesome. This is exactly what I wanted to experience, right? It's the ego self that goes, this sucks.
When I'm on my journey and I notice the growth in myself, you think, well, if I'd have got what I wanted back then I wouldn't have experienced all this.
Exactly.
Amazing. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Blows your brains.
Such a unique journey. I don't regret any of it, There's always this all, if I could go back knowing what I know now, right, I would have done things differently. I don't know, but I would have chosen that necessarily. Not at this point. No.
I think you and I are just deeper down the rabbit hole, aren't we?
I think so. I've been getting down there lately. We were talking about this earlier, guys, but you know, it's been some time. I've been slowing down on the videos a little bit, and I'll do that from time to time because I want to do some more studying. I want to focus a little bit more on myself, but also going a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole. Yeah, I get that sense. It's nice. And I think it's good to do, and we do it for them as well, right? There has to be, you know, we got to keep expanding as well.
I find though that I create videos on things, and then I move past that level, and then they seem redundant. But it's just the way it is, you know.
Yeah, it's a journey.
It'll evolve.
You see that with any channel, I think. You know, anybody that's out there, and that's been doing it for a while. You know, people have been doing it for many years. You go back all the way to their. I just like to do that sometimes. Let's go back to their first video. You know, they've had a channel for 5 or 6 years, and to see who they were then. And it doesn't even have to be anything related to what we talk about. It could be any kind of channel, right? But just to see their evolution and their journey all the way to now is always fascinating for me. Yeah, because I think even doing this changes you, you know, over time, or it teaches you a lot. You know, just me doing this channel, I have a whole different idea and understanding about it now, and it's only been up.
Right, there's no way I would have gone on video in a million years a year ago.
Oh no.
I literally would have been speechless. I would have just frozen.
Yeah.
And now I'm trembling on.
People around me going, I don't know how you do this, Tark. How do you keep finding things to talk about? I go, you know what? I just let it happen. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I don't. I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to screw off and have, you know, go for a walk or go do something else. And I'm not going to do a video. Sometimes I'll go, well, I'm just going to start recording and see what happens, you know. And then all of a sudden I find myself, da-da-da-da-da. And I surprised myself even, like, wow, I just spoke for 50 minutes about something that I didn't even think I had 5 minutes worth of things to talk about. But, yeah, you know.
Crazy. And I think, I mean, I say I'm waking up very, very fast. And it's just, I almost can't keep up with myself. I do think, though, the brain has a locking mechanism that stops you from going too far.
Yes.
You, like I mentioned to you earlier, that I'd had this vision, and ages ago. Do you know Bentinho
Massaro? Yes, I do know of him. Yes, Sedona guy, right? Yeah.
Thing on his on Facebook or Instagram a while ago about paradoxes, and I've always quite liked paradoxes. And he said something along the lines of the best way to resolve a paradox is to transcend it. And I remember thinking, that's quite interesting. How on earth do you do that? Because paradoxes are unsolvable, essentially. And then after I'd had the vision the other night, and it literally just went, the problem just vaporized, and I thought, that's what he means. That's how you transcend a paradox.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you just don't acknowledge it. Again, it's a paradox due to your attention on it being a paradox, your awareness of it even existing as a paradox, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not even a thing. Oh, gone. We talked about this earlier, and you know, for those of you that obviously you don't know because you weren't in on our conversation before we start recording, but briefly, what happened again in your vision? You had there was an issue, and it just sort of, you had a vision of it.
I had a vision. No, I had an everyday problem that had come up. And then I just woke up in the middle of the night, and I had almost a series of thoughts that I felt were thinking me rather than, they were obviously coming from higher self. It's this, say this, do this. And then the problem literally just evaporated. And then in that moment, I knew that it was literally imagined.
Yeah.
And I think then I felt more like I'm not living in the same, I'm not living in an objective reality anymore, and that I am literally living in my own personal dream.
Yeah, I'm in red pill land now. Where's the caterpillar? Where's the rabbit? There's no map out of here. This is it. Click my heels together.
I like Bentinho, and I like Leo from actualize.org.
Yeah.
He's got funny.
I have to check that out. Actualize.org. Is there a channel attached to that? A YouTube channel, or is the website?
Yeah, I'll send you the video he does about what is reality, because it is absolutely blows your brains out. It doesn't that much. Now I've watched it a couple of times. I'm a bit like, yeah, that's old news now. Next.
Yeah, I know. This is kind of where you know we we sort of power through these different levels. I get bored as well. Like, I don't know about that. Okay, I've dealt with that now. I'm over it. Right? I don't want to eat that meal again every night for dinner. You know, it's I've watched this movie 100 times. I'll watch it again in a few months or something. Yeah.
Want something else that's going to blow my brains out.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes you got to change the channel. This is also why, folks, so often things that we've been wanting so long, and we think about it, and we affirm about it, and we do all this kind of stuff. And then when we just put it to rest for a while, sometimes people, they think, oh, I gave up on that thing. They didn't give up. They got tired of thinking about it all the time. They got tired of being upset about it all the time, of pushing and trying all the time. And then they put it down for a bit. They did something else, and boom, there it is. All right? And they go, what happened? I stopped thinking about it constantly. I stopped obsessing about it. I stopped affirming about it. Well, that's exactly what happened, right? I mean, this is what we've been saying all the time. Stop thinking about it. Stop talking about it. You already know what you want. The higher self already knows what it is you want. Just go do something else now. Play with the dog. Go take a class. Go swimming. Go running. Jump out of an airplane with a parachute. And, just put it away for a bit. It's fine. It's done. It's already finished, right? But yeah. Our brain, we're so conditioned to constantly engage. We must do, we must figure it out, we must look at the problem from every angle. Really, there's nothing more left to do at that point.
And I just think this journey for me is so exciting. I've kind of been looking back at things that have happened to me throughout my life. I've had an inkling about it for many, many years, and there's certain things that I now look back on and think, it's just bizarre. Things that have happened. And I remember I'd started a job, and I'd worked one shift with this guy who said he was psychic and he could see dead people. And how did I feel about it? He said, there's somebody who's desperate to give you a message. I was like, okay. Uh-oh. Hey. And I said, yeah, go on then, let's do it. And he said, this person says that people don't listen to you. You must make people listen. You must speak your truth.
Huh.
That was old. And I've always found during my life as I've grown up that I'm interested in obscure things, and most people are like, you're weird. Why are you interested in that kind of stuff?
Yeah, right.
And now I've got to the stage where I know why I was interested in all that kind of stuff. And now it makes more sense to me. And I've obviously also met other people as well who are on the same journey, so it's quite funny. But there are people, I am aware of other people in my life who just live normally and have no awareness of what other things their mind could know about.
And it's not even a matter of, it looks like there we go.
My battery's just low on my phone, it's okay.
Oh, okay. It's not even that you're on some other level as they are. It's just a matter of how ready they feel for certain things. So I think the mind has these comfort zones it constructs around itself to feel safe, right? Because change feels unsafe, doesn't it, to us? I mean, from the monkey perspective, the world self perspective, it feels unsafe, it feels dangerous, but really all you do when you push your comfort zone is you just make it a little bit bigger, that's all. You're just constructing a new, somewhat bigger comfort zone every time. You just push the edges out. And you're fine. You're always going to be fine in the end, right? There's really nothing.
I was talking to my friend yesterday. I said, I'm kind of falling down the rabbit hole and I feel like I'm going crazier and crazier. But the crazier I get, the more aware I am that I influence the way other people see me. So I can decide whether they think I'm crazy or whether they think I'm a genius or whether they just don't notice.
Yeah, right.
With the other, don't you? So you have
the others. Yeah. I always get into conversations. This is a thing I've done for years with old homeless men on the street. Ever since I was a teenager, they always want to talk to me, and then I find them fascinating. Like, what does that say about me? Here's this guy jabbering to himself, and here I am. I'm doing the same thing. Now it comes back to this. We're just jabbering with ourselves, really, right? He's just another version of me as well. Yeah.
And we're not all about what we were going to talk about, but never mind.
Oh, who cares? This is the thing. I always say this too. We have an idea of what we want to talk about. But sometimes it's nice to just have a conversation, because that can benefit. This is what I'm talking about. So we might get some comments saying, that was exactly what I needed to hear today. And here we are kind of thinking, we're just having a little coffee clutch about crazy stuff. Yeah.
Quite nice though, because I think when you do start waking up, you have so many obscure questions that you just got to get the answers to. Otherwise, you just feel like you can't shift into the new perspective because you don't trust it until you've started to get proof that yes, it is. Reality actually is that way.
I don't want all the answers anymore, really, to be honest. I like a bit of mystery. I like this idea of, it bothered me for a while, this thought of, am I going to figure it all out? It bothered me, and I realized why it bothered me was because then what's left to figure out? I kind of like this. I like having something, a big question mark to pursue. I always want to have that in my life. I don't want to know everything. I want to be on the journey of finding it out, figuring it out, but not knowing it all.
Yeah. I think you get glimpses, and after I had that vision, you start to see where you're going, and then you think, I don't care if 99% of my life is a nightmare. If I know that where I'm headed is like that, I'm going anyway. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the fun part. That goes back to, I don't know if we started recording already before that, when I was, younger and I had my driver's license. We used to drive around and get lost all the time, right? My friends, let's just, no destination, let's just go, right? And that's the fun part. Sometimes in life it's I don't know the answer to that question. Well, let's just follow it and see what happens, right? Yeah, that's the thrilling part.
Level of trust in yourself, don't you? But I've always been quite spontaneous and like taking bizarre risks, particularly with houses. Yeah. I'll take a house and everybody else will be thinking, you're insane, I can't believe you'd even consider it. And I just think, well, I've only got half the budget I need, but I'm going to do it anyway and I'll sort it out. And it always works itself out.
It does, sure. I have this with moving to different towns over this city I'm living in now, Portland. It's funny, I've been here 6-7 years now, but I was just visiting a friend from the East Coast for a week, but I wanted a new place to live. I didn't know where. I decided to come visit him. He had been living here for a few months, and within a week I had an apartment. I was dating somebody. It was just this whole thing. It was like butter, they say, in America. It just all came together, and I thought, well, I guess I'm living here now. And and my friends were like, what are you doing? You keep moving around like just some city you pick. It's almost like spinning the globe. I said, you know what? I guess that's just how I am, right? And this is just sort of I can be at home anywhere. And right now, this is what I choose to be my home, right? But it's the same.
When people are like that, they feel discomfort with the change, and you feel discomfort with the stagnation, because I'm the same. The thought of being in the same place, that feeling of,
that's exactly it. Yeah. You just hit it on the nose. That's what's always terrified me, is that I will have the same job, the same this, the same town, the same house for the rest of my life. Has always terrified me. Yeah.
You know that you're just going to live forever anyway now, so even when you finish this life, you'll just have another one.
Yes, I'll come back as the rabbit this time. I'll be the rabbit next time.
Different dimension.
That's right. Oh, this is fun. Well, unless there's anything, I think your phone is dying too, isn't it?
Probably is dying.
Yeah, I think it keeps going out. I don't know how long we've been chatting now. But I do actually need to wrap it up, because there's some other things that I need to do today. But this has been fun, Sarah. Yeah, you're right. We didn't really have any particular topic today, so I think we'll just call it Sarah Part 2, Chat with Sarah. And
or down the rabbit hole.
That's right. Down the rabbit hole with Sarah Dewhirst. We'll revisit this in a couple months, see where we are in the rabbit hole.
Yeah. We've got a different map.
Rabbit hole within a rabbit hole within a rabbit hole, right? Yes. Simulation within a simulation within a simulation. That's an interesting thought. That's some, is this all a simulation? And then who designed the simulation? And are they in a simulation? And who designed that simulation? And is that person in a simulation? And that's how we keep going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, right? Yeah, that's an interesting idea. All right.
Yeah. I kind of get the impression that wherever we go and whatever we think, we are essentially safe, and it's all fine.
It is safe, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's, you know, like I said, discovering this stuff, it can feel scary a little bit, right? It can feel a little bit like, or even the idea, even it's sort of, you intellectually embrace the idea that, yes, I create my own reality, but somewhere viscerally, emotionally, it's still a little bit, you create the resistance because it's a little frightening to think about that. Yeah.
And even just being told that, when somebody said to me, you create your own reality, there's different layers to that as well. Because I first thought that means that, you know, you've got a choice to do, you know, to go choose which job you want or whatever. And then it goes a bit deeper, and then you realize that you heavily influence other people, or you see them in a way that appears as if you heavily influence them. And then you end up thinking, well, I live in my own private simulation, and that's creating your own reality. And that's a massive shift in the same concept, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Well, could even go further. Goodness knows where we could go.
I don't think there's an end to any of it, right?
No.
Yeah. The idea of infinity, too, people always think infinity means no ending, but it also means no beginning.
Yeah.
If you can wrap your mind around that, right? When did it all begin? Well, it didn't. It just has always been. That's how I sometimes go down the rabbit hole, and that's when I go, okay, it's time for me to turn the lights out and try to get some sleep, right? Because if I keep thinking about that concept, I'm never going to go to sleep ever again. Yeah.
I never really was interested in the Bible when I was younger. And I remember reading it. It said, in the beginning, God created the heaven and earth. And I remember shutting the book and thinking, that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
I'm going to figure this one out.
But God created the heaven and earth in his imagination. And I was thinking, well, that makes more sense, because you can create anything in your imagination. And then I could accept it a bit more.
Well, in the beginning was the Word, right? Was it the Word?
Yeah.
And if I remember this from when I was, but what's the word? I always thought after a while the word was actually sort of like your what is it? Your focus. You're manifesting, right? The word represented manifesting.
God is the mind of man, is what he says. Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Wow. Well, we could go deeper and deeper down that rabbit hole, but I think that maybe for now the rabbit hole we'll get the shovel for next time and dig ourselves in even deeper. Is there anything left that you wanted to say, Sarah?
No, it's all really boring compared to the conversation we've had. So,
okay, perfect. Yeah, sometimes we just got to let things go and see where it takes us, right? Yeah, excellent. Perfect. Well, that was fun.
You died yet.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining me again, and vice versa. And yeah, that was fun. We'll do this again soon. I like these kinds of conversations. Like this free form kind of let's just talk about some shit. Yeah.
On our mind by then.
All right, everybody. That was it. That's it for us. And we'll just say goodbye. Unless you have something left to say. I think that we've said enough today, right? Yeah. Okay.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody. Yep.
Bye.
See ya.